Hi family, welcome back to ladensercrochets. If you're new to the channel, you're welcome. My name is Liz. Kindly subscribe and join the family. In this tutorial, we're making a pair of shorts. You can also go ahead and make a pair of pants from this pattern. The only thing that you're going to adjust is your starting chain. That is, you're going to do it longer if you're making a pair of pants and short if you're making a pair of shorts. So I made this short using true colors. You can make yours using a plain color or even just two colors or more. So the number of colors that you choose is up to you. And therefore, grab your materials and let's get into the tutorial. The following are the measurements that you're going to need: the hip measurement, thigh measurements, full length, and the fly measurements. Now, to begin, you need to work two separate panels, and therefore you're going to take your hip measurements and divide it by 2. So the first panel, or the two panels, will each have 23 inches on the hip part, and then we're going to increase that measurement to 26 in order to cater for the thigh measurements. So get those measurements and let's get into the tutorial. These are the requirements for the tutorial. I'm using the true colors, that is red, yellow, and green. I'm going to use a 4mm crochet hook. Then you're going to need a pair of scissors, a darning needle, stitch markers, and a measuring tape. We're going to make two separate panels, and this is one of those panels. I've already done it to the end, and I'm just going to show you how you're going to take the measurements for each of the panels. From this end to the next one, that represents half of the hip measurements. So I'll just get the measuring tape and take that measurement. And this is the width of my work. And when I measure that, it's getting me to 23. I'm working a hip measurement of 46, and therefore 23 is half of 46. Then the other measurement that we are getting is the measurement from that extension to the other extension on the other side, and that represents the thigh measurement. So that I'm going to measure it from the bottom part of the panel. And that gets me to 26. The other very important measurement is the full length of the short, which we measure from the bottom to the top. And that measurement is getting me to around 19 inches. I was working with 18, but it seems like it increased to 19. So I'm going to go with the 19. Then we have the fly measurement, which is from the top to the point where we've extended. Now, I've worked a total of 5 rows for each of the colors, and then I went alternating the colors from red to yellow to green, but you can decide to do more rows of each of the colors. Instead of doing 5, you can do 10 and so on. I'm working with 2 strands of the red color because it's a thin yarn. As for the yellow and the green, these ones are medium weight yarn, and therefore I'll just be working with 1 strand. So the doubling of the red color is in order to achieve the medium weight effect. Grab the yarn and the hook and begin with a slip knot. And our starting chain is going to be the full length of the short. When you're chaining, your chain should be an odd number. So now keep chaining until you get to the full length of the short that you want. I'm working a full length of 19 inches and I'm going to do a total of 61 chains. Keep chaining until you get to your full length. It could be 51, it could be 53, it could be 55. Just make sure that the chain is an odd number. I have my 61 chains ready and I'm ready to start row 1. So we're going to block off the last chain and chain 2 more, yarn over and insert the hook into the chain that we're holding and do a double crochet there. So in total we have 2 double crochets in the first stitch. Then we're going to yarn over, skip the second stitch, the second chain, and work into the third one, do a double crochet, then go back into that chain and do another double crochet for a total of 2 double crochets. Then we're going to yarn over, skip the next chain, work into the next one with 2 double crochets into that chain. Next we're going to yarn over, skip the chain that follows, work into the next one, place 2 double crochets, skip the next chain and work into the one that follows, place 2 double crochets into the same chain. We're going to skip the next one again and work into the one that follows, and we're just going to place the 2 double crochets, and this is a pattern that we're going to repeat until we get to the end of row 1. So you need to ensure that you're skipping a chain and working 2 double crochets into the next chain. Keep going till you get to the end of row 1, and I'll meet you right there. I'm coming to the end of the row, and right here I only have 2 chains remaining, so I'll place the last 2 double crochets into the last chain, and at that point we are done with row 1. Chain 2 and turn to begin row 2. We're going to work in the gaps that are in between the 2 double crochets. So that first gap, place 2 double crochets into it. Then we're going to skip over to the next gap and place 2 double crochets. So we are working at the point after every 2 double crochets. So skip the 2 double crochets, working between them, working between the 2 double crochet clusters, that is, place 2 double crochets into the next gap, place 2 double crochets, then 2 double crochets into the gap that follows. The next gap gets 2 double crochets, and we're going to repeat this till we get to the end of row 2. I'll meet you at the end of row 2 and show you how to finish the row. I'm coming to the end of row 2 now, and I'm just placing my 2 double crochets into those gaps. I have 1 gap remaining, so into that gap I'll do the 2 double crochets. And to complete this row, we work a double crochet onto the chain 2 stitch that we began with right there. So into that last double crochet, place a double crochet right there, just 1 double crochet, and we're done with row 2. Chain 2 and turn to begin row 3. Now the gap for row 3 is the one that is close to the double crochet, and we're going to place 1 double crochet into it, so that together with the chain 2, that makes 2 double crochets. Then we're going to skip into the next gap and place 2 double crochets. Then we're going to repeat the pattern where we're placing the 2 double crochets into every gap until we get to the end of row 3. I'll work up to the end of row 3, and I'll meet you there. At the end of row 3, we're going to do 2 double crochets into the last gap. And that's the end of row 3. As you can see, we're not working an extra double crochet. We're just ending with the 2 double crochets into that very last gap. Chain 2 and turn to begin row 4. And we're going to work row 4 the same way we worked row 2. So we're going to skip over to the gap and work 2 double crochets. Then the next gap will get the 2 double crochets. And then we keep going till we get to the end. The fourth row, we finish it the same way we finished row 2. So let me just work the row and meet you at the end so that I can show you one more time how to finish row 2. So this means we are alternating between row 2 and row 3 until we get to the hip measurement, that is half of our hip measurement. So I'll meet you at the end of row 4 and I'll show you how to do row 5. Then I'll let you continue till you get your hip measurements. I'm working the last 2 double crochets into the last gap, and now to complete the row, we're going to work a double crochet on top of the last double crochet that is at the end of row 3. And then we chain 2 and turn to begin row 5. Like I've mentioned earlier, row 5 is the same as row 3. So we begin with 1 double crochet into that very first gap. Then we skip over to the next gap and work 2 double crochets. Then we place 2 double crochets into each of the other gaps till we get to the end. When you get to the end of row 5, just place your 2 double crochets into that very last gap, and those will be the last, that will be the last part of row 5. Chain 1 and cut off the yarn if you want to change the color, but if you want to continue with that same color, you're just going to chain 2 and turn, and then you're going to work row 6 the same way we worked row 2. Get the point where you've cut the first color and turn your work. Then we're going to get the second color and start with a slip knot. Now, and insert a hook into the very first double crochet, the point where you've cut off the yarn. So into that stitch, insert a hook and pull up a loop to complete a slip stitch. Then tighten it and chain 2. After chaining 2, we're going to go to skip and work into the gap and work 2 double crochets into that gap. Then into the next gap, we're going to place 2 double crochets. This is my row 6, and like I mentioned before, the row 6 will be the same as row 2. That means all the even rows are the same, all the odd rows are the same. So row 2, row 4, row 6, row 8, row 10 are work the same. Then the odd rows, that is row 3, row 5, row 7, and so on, will also be worked the same. So I'll go on, work 5 rows of the yellow, and then after that, I'll cut off the yarn, then I'll reconnect the green, and I'll keep going till I get to the half of my hip measurements. Then I'll be back once I've accomplished that, and I'll show you what to do next. After getting to half of my hip measurement, this is what I have. I've changed the color 9 times, and therefore in total I have 45 rows because each of the colors is 5 rows each. When I fold it into 2, this is what we have, and it represents half of the hip measurement. But then now we need to do an extension in order to get to the thigh measurements. We're going to get the measuring tape, and we're going to measure the fly measurements before we start the extension part, and we're going to measure from the top, that is from the point where we've not cut off the yarn. So I'm going to measure the 12 inches while slightly stretching my work. I'm going to get a point, and then I'll get a stitch marker and mark that point so that I'm reminded that I'll work from the bottom until I get to a gap before the stitch marker. Let me illustrate that with the panel that I've already completed. So as you can see, this part right here represents the fly measurement, and that part remains open. I'm not going to work on it. So I'll start from the bottom coming up. I'm just counting the gaps that I've left on top part of the short, and I want to make sure that in the other panel I still have the same number of gaps. I've counted a total of 13 gaps on this panel that is already complete, and therefore I'll count another 13 gaps into this other panel, and then I'll move my stitch marker to the 13th gap. I'll get my next color, and then I'll connect it at the bottom, starting with a slip knot. Get that point where I cut off the previous yarn and reconnect the yarn there with a slip knot. Reconnect the new yarn with a slip knot right there and chain 2. Then we're going to skip to the gap and work 2 double crochets into that gap. Then I'm going to place 2 double crochets into each of the gaps until I get to a gap before the stitch marker, and that's where I'm going to stop with this row. To know the number of rows that you're going to work for this extension, you're going to get your thigh measurements, and my thigh measurement is 26 inches. Then you're going to take half of the hip measurements. Mine is 23. So I'm going to take the thigh measurement, which is 26 minus 23, and that gives me 3. Then I'll take the 3 that I've gotten and divide it by 2, and that will give me 1.5. and that means the extension on one side should be 1.5 inches. For 1.5 inches, I'm going to do a total of 3 rows on this side. Then I'll go to the other side and do another 3 rows, which will get me to the 3 inches. So now we're going to chain 2 and turn to begin the next row, and I'm going to do the second row and the third row. Then I'll be back once I'm done with the 3 rows. I'm placing my last 2 double crochets, then I'll chain 1 and cut off the yarn because I'm done with the 1.5 inches. It's almost 2 inches. Actually, it's 1.5. So I have the 1.5 on this side, and I'm going to work another 1.5 on the other side. Chain 1. I left a long tail in order to use this to connect one side to the other. Then after cutting off the yarn, pull it through and fasten. And then we're done. We are done with the extension on this side, so we can turn to the other side and do the same exact thing on the other side, starting from the bottom part, of course. And to do that, we need to count the number of gaps. So I'll get the stitch marker and move to the other side, count the same number of gaps on top. They were 13, so I'll count 13 gaps, and then I'm going to mark the 13th gap on that other side. I'm going to connect my yarn at this point after the stitch marker, and then I'm going to work all the way down. So I'll work with the same color, that is the yellow color. Start with a slip knot, and then I'll get the gap just after the stitch marker and do a slip stitch to connect the yarn, and then I'll chain 2, go back into that gap with another double crochet, so that together with the chain we have 2 double crochets. Place 2 double crochets into the next gap, 2 double crochets into the next, 2 double crochets into the gap that follows. Then I'll keep going to the end, and I'll meet you at the end of this first row to show you how to begin row 2. At the end of row 1, you want to make sure that this row is completely identical with the first row on the other side. So I'm going to do the last 2 double crochets into the last gap. This is the second last, so let me do the last 2 double crochets, and then my last stitch will be a double crochet into the last double crochet. Then I'll chain 2 and turn, then I'll work row 2 and row 3. You already know how to work the rows, so go on, work the other 2 rows, and then I'll be back once I'm done with the 2 rows in order to make 3 on that side. I'm done with the 3 rows, and I've realized that I don't need this end that I left, so I'll cut it short. And so I'll use the yarn that I'm using on the other side. I've not cut it off, so leave it there, and we're going to use it to connect the stitches from the bottom to the point where the fly begins or where the fly ends. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. Then I'll begin in the first stitch on this side. I'm going to connect it with the stitch, the first stitch on the other side, with a single crochet. Then the second stitch with the second stitch on the other side, connect with a single crochet. The third stitch, connect it with the third stitch on the other side, and we're going to connect the corresponding stitches till we get to the top part. The last stitch on this side is a chain 2, so I'll connect them. I'll connect it with the other one on the other side, then chain 1 and cut off the yarn. At that point, we are done with that connection. Pull the yarn through and fasten, and we have our first leg complete. Now just turn your leg to the right side, and now you're going to get the other panel and connect it the same way we've connected this one. We want to ensure that the middle part is connected. So I'll go on, do the connection, then I'll be back to show you how to join the 2 legs in order to get the short. I have my two legs ready, as you can see, and both of them are on the right side. So you want to ensure that both of your legs, you've turned them to the right side in order to connect the middle part. So we're going to hold the two panels side by side with the middle parts facing each other like this. Then you're going to get a stitch marker, and you're going to get the point of connection where we've connected the two panels. That's connection row and the connection row on the other side, and pin them together because that is the middle part of the pair of shorts. Then you're going to get another stitch marker, and you're going to mark the beginning of the yellow rows. So I'm just marking that part. The point of marking is just to align your work. If you can have your work aligned even without marking, then well and good, you can work without the stitch markers. Then you're going to turn your work like this and make sure that you're working from the inside part of the short, because remember, we've already turned them to the right side, so the hem is on the inside part. Now get your yarn. For this point, I'm going to use either green or red because I have the green and the red panels. I'll connect the yarn on the first stitch on this side and the first stitch on the other side. Then I'll grab the yarn and do a slip stitch at that point, just connecting the two stitches, the two first stitches of the two panels, and then chain one and go back into that stitch with a single crochet. From this side, I'm going to the second stitch and the first gap on the other side. So the second stitch is aligned with the gap on the other side. Then the third stitch, we're going to align it with the third stitch where we had the two double crochets. Then the fourth stitch is going to align with the gap after the two double crochets. Then the next stitch aligns with a stitch where we have the two double crochets. I hope you can see, or whatever I'm saying is making sense to you. Then the next stitch will align with the gap. Right there, do your single crochet, and now keep going like this till you get to the stitch marker. When I get to the stitch marker, I'll cut off the green yarn and then I'll connect the yellow, because we cannot connect a yellow panel with a green. We want the colors to flow well. So I'll get to that point where the stitch marker is, and then I'll change to yellow, then I'll change back to green while attaching on the other side. We're going to place our single crochets until we get to the stitch marker. That is the point where the stitch marker was. That is where we're going to have the last single crochet. Then chain one, cut off the green yarn and pull through. If you are working the same colors, you do not have to cut off the yarn. You can just continue with your same color through the middle part. And now I'm going to get my yellow color, and when I'm connecting the yellow color, I'll start at the point where I've cut off the green yarn. That is where I'm going to do the slip stitch with the yellow color. So do the slip stitch, pull up the yarn and chain one, then go back into that stitch with a single crochet. Go into the next stitch with another single crochet. As I do this, I'll work over my yellow yarn just to weave it in. Then that gets me to the double crochet rows. We have the double crochet row on this side and the double crochet on the other side. Place two single crochets into them. Then we're going to go into the next double crochet row and place another two single crochets. So this double crochet row and the double crochet row on the other side, work two single crochets. Into the next double crochet row, we're going to insert a hook into the row and place two double crochets to connect the two rows. Then we're going to get to the point where the stitch marker is. We're going to pull it out And into that row of connection, the row that connected the middle part of each of the pieces, we're going to work a single crochet right there. It was a single crochet row. So the single crochet row on this side and the single crochet row on the other side. That is the exact middle point of our short. Place a single crochet, and that will get us to the rows. So we're going to work the 2 rows connected together with 2 single crochets. The next 2 rows, we connect them with 2 single crochets. And then the last yellow rows, we connect them with 2 single crochets. And now, because I'm done with the yellow color, I'll chain 1. I'll do a single crochet just after the row, and then chain 1 and cut off the yarn. Pull through and fasten. Then next I'm going to join the green yarn, and then I'll connect the same way I've connected the upper part. So I'll do this off camera, and then I'll be back to show you what to do next, because you already know how to connect this part. You can either connect from the middle part or you can connect from the top. I'm going to do the connection from the top and then come back, and then we're going to continue from there. Once I'm done with the connection on the other side, this is what we have, and we're almost done with our pair of shorts. As you can see, it's coming along beautifully. So next we're going to do a simple edging on the bottom part, on the 2 legs, and also on the top part of the shorts. Get your yarn and the hook, and we're going to start from the point where we connected the leg. Insert your hook there and pull up a loop. You can use either of the colors that you're working with. And while I'm doing this, I'll be working over the ends just to weave them in. So just grab your yarn through that first row and chain 1. Then go back into that row with a single crochet. Then into the next row, we place 2 single crochets. We are working the double crochets rows. The double crochet rows at the bottom part of the pair of shorts. 1 single crochet into the next row. The row that follows will get 2 single crochets. The next row will get 1 single crochet. The next one will get 2 single crochets. And the next one gets 1 single crochet. And we're going to alternate between 1 single crochet and 2 single crochets in alternate rows till we get to the end of this row. Make sure that you're working over your ends just to weave them in, because you don't want to have a lot of ends that need to be weaved in. Once you get to the end of this row, you're just going to do a slip stitch onto the first stitch that we've done, and you'll be done with this row. So do that on this leg, and then do the same thing on the other leg. Once you're done with the border or the edging on the bottom of the shorts, we're going to work on the upper part of the pair of shorts. I'm done with the border at the bottom part. Like I've said, you just do a slip stitch at the end of that row. I'm just going to trim off the ends that have remained, and then we're going to work the upper part of the pair of shorts, and we're going to work the same way we worked the border at the bottom part, but we're going to begin at the middle part, at the point of connection of the 2 panels. So just get that middle part and reconnect your yarn. Insert your hook into that point and grab a loop of the yarn. I'm working with the red. You can work with the green or the yellow or whatever color you're working with. Chain 1, go back into that stitch and work a single crochet. That's a row. We're working on the rows, so we skip over to the next row and place 2 single crochets. Then 1 single crochet into the next row. 2 single crochets into the row that follows. Like we've done with the border at the bottom, we're going to work as we weave in the ends. So we are alternating between 2 single crochets in one row, 1 single crochet into the next row, and we're going to go all the way around the upper part of the pair of shorts. I'll meet you at the end. I'm coming to the end of this row and I'm just working the alternate 2 single crochets and single crochet, and I'm almost done. So I'm working 2 single crochets, then 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets next, and that is the last row, and therefore we slip stitch on top of the very first stitch that we did in that border row, then chain 1 and cut off the yarn, and we are done with that upper part of the pair of shorts. Now, because we worked with the hip measurements, the pair of shorts will not be able to fit perfectly onto the waist, and therefore we're going to do a strap that we're going to attach to the waist part in order to pull it together and for it to be able to fit onto the waist part. Right here, I'm just weaving in that end. It's the last end that I have remaining, and then after that I'll do the strap and then connect it to the waist part of the pair of shorts. Get 2 strands of the medium weight yarn and start with a slip knot. Then you're going to chain a total of 200 chains. It could be 200, 300, 250 depending on the size of your waist and the size of your hips. So I'll just keep going with the chains until I get my desired length, and then after I'm done, I'll just get the ends and I'll do a knot at that end. Make sure that the knot is very close to the stitches and tighten it. Then I'll get my pair of scissors and cut off the yarn, but make sure that you don't cut close to the knot that you've made. So let me just work my strap and then I'll be back. I have the strap ready, so I'll get the darning needle, put the strap through, and then I'll use the darning needle to attach the strap onto the pair of shorts. This part of joining the strap is completely up to you, however you feel is okay for you, but beginning with the front part of the pair of shorts, you're just going to get a point below the single crochet row. I'll skip 3 rows from the inside part and pull up my strap. Then from the outside, I'll skip 1 row, then 3 rows from the inside, then 1 row from the outside. You can skip 2, you can skip 1, however you want to do it, that's completely up to you. Then you're just going to go all the way around the waist area of the pair of shorts, attaching the strap. So now with the straps, you can pull the straps and adjust the waist to your desired length, just like this. And at this point, we are done with the pair of shorts. So thank you so much if you've stuck around to the end of the tutorial. If you've enjoyed the tutorial, kindly leave a like, comment, share, subscribe if you're not subscribed. And if you want to leave a special gift, click on the thanks button and I'll appreciate whatever size of gift you'll be able to. See you in the next tutorial.